Welcome back to episode 15, Electrified Marina podcast. I'm your host and producer, Brooks Lawson.
And Erick Pinzon from Electrified Marina.
Today is Monday, October 27th, and our guest is Matt O'Hara from Freedom Boat Club. Thanks so much for taking time to join us today, Matt.
Yeah, pleasure to be with you guys.
This show is brought to you by us at Electrified Marina. Please check out electrifiedmarina.com/Brooks and call or email us if you decide you have interest in buying a new electric boat or repowering your current boat with electric powertrain. Best way to interact with the show is to post comments in the comment section on YouTube. Matt, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us a little about yourself and about your company and how you came to be.
Yep. So we are a Freedom Boat Club up in Lake George. I also own a marina called the Queen Boat Company on Lake George. So we just finished our 9th summer up here with the Freedom Club and 6th summer with the marina. We leased a smaller marina our first few years. The reason I'm talking to you guys is because we've been advocates and into electric boating for probably about 7 years now. We started off as torpedo dealers when we were over at our old location. We put what was at the time a Canadian electric boat with a torpedo motor into our boat club fleet. That's obviously now Vision Marine. We had that for 2 years. And then we decided to upgrade our electric a little bit. That boat was fun, but it wasn't quite what members were looking for as far as their boating experience. And we really wanted to find out whether the issue with that boat was the boat or the motor. It was a small boat. Lake George gets really busy. There's a lot of wake, a lot of traffic, and that small boat just was not a very comfortable ride. So we decided to take a boat that we already had in the fleet that we knew was popular, a 23-foot tri-tune. That's typically about half our fleet. We know members love them. And we rigged that with a flux outboard. So that way we could really test, do people have an issue with concept of an electric motor, or was it just the boat that wasn't comfortable? Now we eliminate the boat problem because we know they already love the 23-foot tri-tune. We know that handles the water and it's a comfortable boat. And now let's see how it does with the electric motor. And that was a much bigger success. So we had that for 2 years, and then we sold that, and we went with a Highfield 660 with a flux motor, bigger motor, more power, faster, high performing. And then we had that in the club for the first time this year. Along the way, we kept selling torpedo outboards. We also took on e-propulsion and started selling the e-propulsion outboard line. And I want to say, God, either 2 or 3 years ago now, time kind of flies. We became the first marina in the Northeast to install an Aqua Superpower DC fast charger. So that was a great event. We had one of the Ingenuity boats here. We had a electric hacker craft here. We had the electric Nautique here. We did a really big grand opening for that. So we've just had a lot of interest in electric boating. We've had a lot of fun with it, and we've had some success in the club with it and as a dealer.
That's huge, man. What was the initial interest in that? Did you have a background in like engineering, or like what was the motivation there? There's usually something.
No, I'm like the least technical person when it comes to this stuff. So starting to sell them has been a big education process, because especially early on, the really early adopters were the really technical people, the engineers.
It's
So they
another
would
level.
with like everyone had new questions that I had just never heard before, and I had to open up the manual and call the tech people and get some answers. A lot of those early adopters were people who were building their own solar panels on their house and living off the grid and all that stuff. So they could kind of talk circles around me technically. Really, Lake George is known as the cleanest lake in America. It's also known as the smartest lake in America. There's a project called the Jefferson Project that's got all
Oh
these
yeah.
sensors around the lake with IBM and one of the local engineering colleges, RPI. Um, my wife's family's been on the lake for almost 90 years now. And just kind of caring about the quality of the lake and keeping it, the cleanest lake in the country for my kids and their kids is just kind of the motivation for trying to get into electric boating a little bit. From a club operator standpoint, um, our boats are going out. We're putting 300 or so hours on our gas motors a year. So we're doing 3 services a year on the boats. So from a fleet management perspective, from a boat club operator, we're eliminating that service. We're eliminating the winterization that we do here in the Northeast. So getting rid of some of those maintenance costs on our club boat was a little bit of a factor just to see how that went. And then just a sales perspective, we're in the Adirondacks. Again, it's a very protected park, very protected lake. And I had a suspicion, especially in the smaller lakes of the Adirondacks, that there would be a lot of interest in, the smaller electric outboards on the dealer side. On the club side, I just thought it would be a really nice way to get in front of new people who maybe hadn't considered boating or weren't, that like bottom of the funnel ready to boat people. But when they see that you have an electric boat, it's something that interests them and just a way to attract a little more attention and interest into the boat club.
Yeah, man. It's interesting that demographic that's appealing in terms of electric boating. A lot of our customers have never considered a boat before until this. Are you finding that with like new boat club members? Do you think it's attracting those people?
A little bit. I had an interesting conversation. We had a meeting in Lake St. Clair in Michigan last September with our other Freedom Boat Club owners. It's called a 20 group. We get together a few times a year. We share financials and information. And the Flux guys have brought their high field, and then they had a customer they just sold the Scout boat to come so that all the Freedom owners could demo those two boats. And I was talking to the Scout, the person who just bought the Scout, and that was exactly what they said. They're like, we never would have owned a boat. It wasn't on our radar. When we found out we could do it with an electric motor and do it, more environmentally friendly. And that's the only reason we're in a boat. So, it's interesting to hear that and see that. I think one of the biggest shifts I've noticed really is that the people that are interested in it used to be interested in it because of the environmental reasons, because they had, some belief that what they were doing was, better for the waterways and stuff. And I think the shift now, just with the quality of the motors and the performance of the motors, is like you're not sacrificing your boating experience to help the environment. It used to be like, well, it's good for the environment. Maybe we're going to go a little slower. Maybe we can't go as far. We're willing to make those sacrifices to do what we think is, right for the environment. And I think the technology has just come so much farther that now it's people that are doing it because they just like the performance. So instead of like, we're willing to sacrifice the performance, it's like, actually, this is a better performing boat for us. We like the torque, we like the speed, we like the acceleration, we like how quiet it is. And so it's no longer that trade-off of willing to reduce our boating experience to do something good for the environment. Now it's like, I don't even care about the environment. I just want this boat because it's like a better boating experience.
I say bring that up to a lot of people more so on social media than anything. And these people like go into this rabbit hole of, oh, climate change, you're not doing anything, and like losing their mind about it. And like when I haven't in like whether it's that message or any messaging, I don't even bring that up a lot of the time. And it's like, hey, what like did you have this idea that it's just a superior product? Like, what if people are buying it just because of that? And we saw that quite a bit when I was at Tesla, and we saw Corvettes getting traded in, and I mean, Porsche cars, like some pretty nice cars. And these people just liked electric propulsion better. It's not because they're saving the environment in their plaid Model X. They'd be, riding a bicycle or something else. But yeah, it's just a better product and like the convenience of it. So you touched on something earlier in terms of the 3 services a year. We like transparency in here. So has there been like major services or repairs on the Flux boats?
No, I mean, like we're getting ready to put it away for the winter now, and like we just pull it out of the water and put it away. Like there's nothing to do.
And so like belt's been good, no oil changes, like nothing.
No. I mean, the first one we had, the Flux that we put on the Tri-Tune was a very early version, and
That was a prototype, wasn't it? Like
exactly,
pre-production?
yeah. So
Okay.
there were some tweaks and there was some learning, but we knew that that was the point. If it works for our club, like I was telling you before, our high field went out about 130 times this year, which no Erick's not taking his boat out 130 times a year. So it's really got to stand up to the test of a lot of boating and a lot of different users driving it in different ways. Um, so the prototype, had the same thing. There were a lot of different people driving it, and it was out every day. And I think it was a really good learning experience for them, because if it can last and stand up to the way we use it, it can stand up to the way anyone's going to use it. So the high field this year on that with the Flux, 130 trips, and I can open up my spreadsheet and tell you how many miles it did over those trips. But no issues, no maintenance. It was awesome.
So, and you guys have a shorter season, so that might be like almost every day, at least every single weekend day at a minimum. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, I mean, our club's open 150 days. We're a 5-month season, so it's out pretty much every day.
So you couldn't even say that like people were picking other boats over it. Like that thing went out not like almost nonstop. If it was down, that was like the very much the minority there. That's awesome to see, man.
Yeah, and the nice thing about the club, so we had 25 boats between two locations, so it was a small percentage of the available boats, obviously. But the great thing about the club with 200 members is there's always going to be someone who wants to use that boat. So there are definitely members, to be honest, that just have no interest in it and they're never going to try it. Uh,
100%.
and then
Afraid of
there's
change and they're stuck in their ways. Don't even want to give it a chance.
Yeah, and some of that is it's a rib. Ribs up here are really new. There aren't a lot of ribs outside of like the enforcement agencies. So it's a new style of boat and a new style
Uh,
of motor. So there's a lot going on there. But then you've got a lot of people who like try it and love it. So that's their first choice every time. And then you got a lot of people who sometimes are going to take it, sometimes aren't, and that's great. So for the club model, it's awesome because it doesn't have to be your everyday boat, but when it fits what you're doing that day, it's the boat you're going to take.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting, man. And in terms of feedback from people, like, oh, is it like overall positive? Is there people that, was it short on range or they didn't like it for some reason, maybe a top speed issue? Or I'm curious on how the overall feedback been.
No one that went on it didn't like it. Like there was no
Nice.
negative feedback. The only negative feedback was from the people that wouldn't try it. Right?
It's the same thing we deal with electric cars, man. Oh, it'll never work. Oh, that thing can't tow far enough. It tows like crap. And like as soon as they start dismissing local towing with electric, it's like, oh, I can tell you've never ever towed with one. Or
Yeah.
they say, it's just not practical as a daily driver. And it's like, does nobody in your circle have an electric car? Because everybody loves them for exactly that reason. And like, obviously, you wouldn't get one without level two charging. And you guys like went the next level with level three charging. Was that just in case you have like 2 half-day rentals and you need to turn it over super quick?
Exactly. Yep. So so our boats, can go out twice a day. The electric boat we had prior to this wasn't DC fast charging capable, so that boat only went out once a day, and that really limits how many electric boats you can even consider putting in your club because you really need those two reservation slots to make the math work on members and memberships and all that.
Yeah.
So this boat now, yeah, come back at 1 o'clock, charge up in a half hour, 45 minutes, and go back out, at 2 o'clock. So that was definitely a huge thing for the club model. I just looked at our trips. So over those 122 trips, I didn't capture like the last 10 trips. We did over 1,000 miles of boating, 1,006 miles of boating on that boat this year.
Hold on. 1,006 miles of boating on an original motor, original belt, no oil changes, nothing.
Yep.
That's amazing, man. And it's funny because I've most of my day, not most of my day, a lot of my time on social media is like dispelling myths and fighting off trolls. And it's like, oh, that'll never work in a commercial application. And you just explained a very aggressive, very abusive environment with like, essentially boat rentals every single day during the season. And it performed perfectly well. Like that is impressive, man. Hats off to the Flux guys and the Highfield guys. It's awesome to hear.
And there's a lot of
Um,
trips, so top speed was about 34 miles an hour. And, probably half our trips, our average speed is about 15 miles an hour or more. And the funny thing is, again, we have data from our Mercury motors when we're pulling all our motors and selling them. And like, you can pull by hour the RPM range. So you can see, this motor is 0 to 1,000, 1,000 to 2,000, 2 to 3.
yeah.
And like most of our boating happens under 4,000 RPM on the gas motor. So like this boat isn't really doing anything that people are doing on like, it's not like people are out there cruising around at 60 miles an hour on these boats. Like they're able to boat on this the same way they're able to boat on every boat in the fleet. Um, so
That's amazing, man. We got a question here from Bruno. Do any of your fleet, any boats in your fleet, hot swap batteries?
no, so the only electric boat in the fleet is that Flux, and right now that's just a fixed battery system, 85 kilowatt hours and separate battery packs, so the batteries don't get touched.
Yeah. And has there ever been times where charging was an issue? I guess if you've got level two charging overnight and a fast charger in the middle of the day, like has it ever disrupted regular business?
No, no, it hasn't. Once we got once it was fast charging capable, now that boat just operates the same way every other boat operates. Last year and the year before when it could only go out once a day,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it was disruptive, but it changed the business model.
Hmm.
But now that we can fast charge it in the middle of the day, it's just another boat.
That's huge, man. I've got a lot of other boat rental operators that I've chatted with, and fast charging always comes up as a concern and a question to make sure it's viable. But it sounds like that would never be the issue as long as you've got an adequate fast charger there, and you've got like one of the big Aqua Superpower units. It's not like you've got something small there.
Yep. Yeah, and Aqua's been great. That whole business model that they set up has been awesome for us. They paid for the install, they paid for the equipment, they rev share on the electricity cost, and they upgraded our electric service to be able to install it. So there was $0 out of pocket for us to get that set up, and we're making money off it with the rev share. So I would definitely look into that for any people who own marinas out there and are thinking about it. It's a great opportunity for us.
Yeah, that's huge, man. I try and tell people about them because 10 years ago when I was with Tesla, they had the destination charging program. And we were just trying to get the word out about these charging stations. And these businesses were so short sighted. And it's funny because it's the same problem I'm running into now. And it's like, hey, Aqua saw Tesla do this on land. They're trying to do it on the water. And they're going to cover all your upfront exposure. And then you've got this long term benefit from them. It's like an added amenity. And I try to express to these marinas and these restaurants on the water, like it's not like every single marina is going to get one. There's going to be like one per waterway that comes in for free. And like you would be dumb to not take advantage of that right now. But these marinas are just so short-sighted. And it's the same people that think electric cars will never take on. And it's like if you get it installed and it's free, like what do you have to lose? How
Yep.
long have you had yours installed?
So I'm trying to think of whether this was our second or third year. I think this was our second year with it. I'm pretty sure.
Wow. Oh, that's awesome. And so, I mean, you arguably got it installed before you had a boat that could use it, right?
We did, yeah, yeah. We just wanted to get ahead of it, and yeah,
That's
again, I
huge.
think, being in the Adirondacks, being on this lake, I just really think the use case starts to make sense here. So we just, like you said, I wanted to do it before someone else did, and um, ideally they do get a couple more on the lake. It's a 32-mile lake, and you get one on this. We're kind of on the southern end. You get someone else to do it, middle of the lake or the northern end, and then people have a couple different places they can stop and charge. And having a network of those would be really nice too.
Yeah, that's huge. Lake Tahoe has, I think, the best example of that right now with a pretty good, network. Is there other marina owners on the lake that have approached you to like get feedback or anybody else interested? I'm curious.
Okay, so there is another one that was working with Aqua and never quite pulled it together. They ended up, the marina's on the market now, so I think they
Hmm.
knew they were going to sell it prior to, you know, getting everything finalized with the charger. Um, but I think we'll get another one sooner rather than later.
That's awesome, man. I always bring it up whenever we're at events and people are asking where the, charging infrastructure is at. And I explain that, 99.9% of a person's use case is going to be with level 2 charging. And I always bring up, I said, level 3 charging, we're at the early stages of it. And I mentioned you guys in Lake George, and I was like, there's no fast charger in between them and here. And like we've got a couple conversations we're working on, but like that's where we're really at with the stages of this stuff, and the innovator stages or early adopter, if you will. That's huge. You took the leap to do it. Is there? Do you think you guys will be getting more boats in the future? I mean, as you age out gas boats, would you be replacing them with electric, or do you think there's enough demand right now? Or
I think we'd really like another electric pontoon.
Mhm.
Um, so that's something we're assessing right now. We actually opened up our second Freedom Boat Club about a half hour from here on the same lake. Um, and that marina we're just leasing, and I don't know that the charging infrastructure is going to end up being something they're interested in doing. Um, but we're adding, three more boats, so we'll have 28 boats in the fleet next year. And again, adding a second electric boat kind of can make sense with the percentage of the fleet that's electric. But I think the next one I would want to do is a pontoon again, because that was a really cool boat. And those have come a long way, just with Flux having like a dedicated pontoon partner. Um, it was a fun project, but not the easiest thing to just send them a blank boat and take all the gas rigging out and strip out the fuel tank and figure out where the batteries go. So now that they've got like an actual partner doing it, it's something we're considering for the future.
Yeah, on that boat, were they like shoving them under seats and stuff? Because they weren't
Yeah,
putting them in the
yeah,
center
pretty
tune
much.
then. Oh, wow. Yeah, I try to express how convenient it is just shoving them down in the center log, and it's like you don't. It's so easy to drop in a powertrain at that point on any pontoon, make it a tri-tune. That retrofit becomes seamless.
So, Matt, it seems like you're in kind of a unique position as far as data collection goes, not only for electric boats, but also for gasoline ones. Is there any kind of interesting information you've been able to glean from that data about electric boats and how people use them, other than what you've already told us?
Um, range was always everyone's like big concern. Um, and I'm looking like, we have a handful of trips that were over 20 miles of boating. And like, I think, you know, we are just a good use case for this. It's a 32-mile lake, but whether you're in a gas or an electric boat, a third of our members every day are going to this place called Sandy Bay that's 2 miles in either direction. So it doesn't matter what propulsion you have because you're just getting to a buoy, tying up, swimming and recreating, and then driving back. So it just makes sense here because, again, the use case makes sense. Like, you know, I know if I'm a coastal club and people are trying to chase fish 25 miles offshore, they're probably not getting in one of these boats. And that's fine. It's not the boat for everyone. It's not the boat for every use case or every day. But I think we're at a point now where, again, like these boats aren't used any differently than our gas boats are used. So I guess instead of like pointing out a difference, I would just say, we're at a performance and a range level where it's just another boat and it's, again, a fun boat to drive and a nice experience and it's quiet. And so if you know what you're doing, and again, like there are some days where someone's going to want to go all the way to Ticonderoga, which is 26 miles up and 26 miles back, and they're just not going to take that boat. Could it do it? Yes. You'd have to go slow and it would take you all day, but you could do it. But that day you don't take the boat, and the next day when you're going to a restaurant that's 5 miles away and coming back, then you take it because it's a great ride. So um, I actually found, just the ribs. I'd never had any experience with the ribs, so this isn't really about electric boating. Um, but man, those things just ride through the water great. Um, you got two big cushions on either side and the deep V aluminum hull. And I was moving it from our northern location to our southern location on a rough day. And every time you hit a wave and come down, it's just like this soft, pillowy landing. On any of our fiberglass boats, even the pontoons, you're kind of pounding and you feel those shocks when you're hitting these waves. And the rib itself just was a great ride. So, we're still trying to convince people, whether it's gas or electric, that that's a style of boat that's worth trying because it's a really nice ride.
What made you guys go with that one versus like one of the other scouts that might be a better fit there?
Uh, curiosity.
Nice, man. I
I
like
know,
it. Just
I just,
trying it.
it we actually we became high field dealers too, so it was a
Oh,
little bit of a symbiotic relationship. It was nice to have one in the water so people could see it. But when we became high field dealers, same thing. Like we demoed a couple boats, and it just felt like kind of a fun opportunity to introduce a new style of boat that gives people a different experience because we've got enough bow riders, we've got enough pontoons. So this was just a different experience to offer people on the water.
that's a pretty big risk. Like a different boat style and a different propulsion system. Man, hats off to you for sending it. That's awesome. Not many people would be that risky with that much of an investment.
Well, we're lucky that we've got members that like what we're doing and respect what we're doing, and we treat them right and give them a really good experience. So that gives us a little bit of leeway to try some things.
Yeah, way cool. And in terms of the like education curve, do you guys do like an orientation with the members or what does that look like if someone's renting it for the first time?
Yeah. So everyone goes through like our training before they take any boat out. So they go through about a 3.5 hour course. Half of that's on the water with our captain. So they've got a lot of hands-on boating experience before they take any of our boats out.
Hmm.
And then their first time with the electric boat, we'll definitely walk them through the systems and show them what the screen means. And the screen is, everyone's got a cell phone now, and it's so intuitive to just say, how like you're always looking at your cell phone and seeing what the battery level is. Well, that same looking bar with a percentage is on the boat. So pay attention to that. If you're going really far and you're going in the one direction and you're down to 40%, start coming back the other direction. And I think, everyone really gets the idea. That's what we really want to explain, is that they'll say, well, what's the range? And it's like, it's anywhere from an hour and a half to 14 hours. Okay. Well, it's anywhere from 35 miles to 125 miles. Okay. So it's really more than like demonstrating it. Like, we want them to kind of feel the throttle. We want them to feel how instant that torque is and how quick the acceleration is. But it's really the education piece is uh, making sure they really understand that wide open is going to use your battery a lot faster than, going slow. So that power usage is just exponential the faster you go. So that's just the biggest learning curve, that we can't tell you where you're going to get to and how far you're going to get to. And it sounds a little scary, but just know that the faster you go, the quicker the battery is going to go. And, your range, again, it could be anywhere from 35 miles to 125 miles, depending on how fast you're going. And you just need to be aware. But we also joke that, like, we've had plenty of people run out of gas too. Not necessarily our members, but we've got a tow business, and
Nice.
we're getting boats that run out of gas. So, like, yeah, the boat can run out of battery, but boats can run out of gas too, and people do. So you got to look at your fuel gauge. You got to look at your battery gauge. It's the same idea.
So my next question is, how many people have ran out of charge out there?
None on the high field.
Hold on. 0 people have ran out of charge on that boat, and they're all
Yeah,
brand new to that taking that high field out.
yep. And then the pontoon boat, I'm not gonna lie, we did have to tow 2 back, but both were reciprocal members. So, like, Freedom Boat Club's got 430 locations, and members from any club can use every club.
Yeah,
And our members are very, they listen, they pay
they're
attention,
aware.
they do what we ask them to do. Sometimes reciprocal members who are on vacation, when your dock staff's telling them and giving them instruction, they just kind of blow you off and don't really care and don't pay attention because they're too busy, talking to their friends or whatever. Um, so we did have 2, and then we started implementing a little bit of a different reciprocal procedure, and we had a much higher trust in our home club members than reciprocal. So we really just wanted to give them a longer orientation and make sure they were really paying attention, because it all just comes down to paying attention. Like, if you pay attention, it's not that hard.
Yeah, there's been 2 times where I've almost ran out of range. One time was with my mentor out there on the Chris Craft, and he was interested in buying it. And he's out there playing around at, 30, 40 miles an hour, just really eating up the range. And he was trying to put it through its paces, see how the thermal management system is doing. And I wasn't really paying attention. I was hanging out there with a friend. We had a beer, and he's going at like solid 35, 40 miles an hour. And I look up and I'm like, man, we're heading in the wrong direction right now. And I was like, hey, what's your range? And he said, oh shit, it's down to 20 something percent. I'm like, we should head the other way now.
And do it a little more slowly.
Right. And so he slowed down to, it was like 20, 25 miles an hour. But it was like a mile and a half, 2 miles away. We hit 10% and the thing throttled us down. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, we've got plenty of range to make it back. You're just doing it slowly. And so we went back at like 7 miles an hour, but it was kind of perfect. It was sunset. It was a nice day. But like, you really have to not be paying attention, like oblivious to it. And it's awesome to hear that nobody has ran out of ran out of charge in that boat in 130 uses all summer long. That's damn impressive. We got a comment. Shift to Electric said, sounds like boat clubs are a great way to introduce number of people to electric boating. And I kind of want to touch on that because, like, I agree. But a big part of your guys' business model is buying and selling boats and getting, good margins with the buying power that Freedom Boat Club or, in other cases, Carefree offers. How does this, how do the numbers work without, going into too much detail? Like you're saving money on maintenance, winterizations, like all of those operating costs are gone. But I know from my end, like we don't have massive margins like the gas boats do. How does that work in your guys' model? Is this more like you're doing it for the mission, or like you think it'll still fit in well?
Um, so those are the 2 biggest reasons boat club operators, in my opinion, aren't taking this leap a little more, is one, not having that fast charge capability.
Hmm.
Um, I think a lot more people would try it if they knew they could turn it easily twice a day and could do that quick charge. And 2 is just the unproven resale. Um, So like this high field, we typically use our boats for 2 years. So every year we're selling half our fleet, and it's definitely a risk right now. Like I have no idea how we're going to do on this high field after next season.
Honestly, it'll probably be the second in the world that's been sold as a used electric high field.
So I think until there's more of a used market and people have a better expectation of what they're going to get back in the boat, it is a hard thing for boat club operators to do. We had the benefit of being a high field dealer, so we could get it at dealer prices. Um, so that should help on our margin a little bit. Um, but I don't know. I mean, the answer is I think it's still a good business decision. I don't think I'm just doing this for the mission, but I can't tell you that it is until we sell the boat. So
Yeah, and that's a pretty big decision for a lot of guys. If they're making $100,000 purchase or more, and you're just hoping for some residuals there that it's unknown. You can't calculate anything until there's been a couple of case studies in that regard. So you'll probably be the first one in the country. The only other used high field I've heard of is down in like I think BVI somewhere. Is your boat, is that an 84 kilowatt hour boat or 112? So it's interesting to note that because you could have installed a fourth battery module in there for call it 20% more range, and it's still getting used like it would any other boat with room to go.
yeah, it's the same thing. Like we just didn't think we would even need that extra range, and we haven't. So
God, good stuff, man. I'm curious if you've crunched numbers on your maintenance and your fuel savings, or if you could give us like a rough estimate of that.
um, so I mean, we are a service, like we have our own service department
Oh,
too. So like
that's
we're not
huge.
paying we're not paying retail on the services, but I know what we're not spending in oil and filters and all that stuff. The fuel's a little different. For some clubs, I would say not having to gas up a boat. So we've got two locations. One, we have a gas dock. That's the marina we own. So we're actually selling the gas. And then the other one, we don't. So like our staff, we're like paying people to go drive boats back and forth to a fuel dock and fill them up. And a lot of clubs are in that situation too. So for clubs that have to do that, the savings to not have to pay staff to drive, like I know some clubs like they're driving a half hour each way just to put gas in boats. And if
And
they
it's more
could take
convenient.
that cost out and just charge it up at the dock and not have to do that, I mean that's a big savings for people that isn't being captured right now.
Yeah, I like payroll's one part of it, but liability, downtime, like that's big when you're doing that. And so that's arguably more efficient than dragging like fuel caddies down the dock, or they probably can't get a tank installed at that marina.
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. And so in terms of maintenance, it's probably what, a few $100 a season since
Yeah,
you're
every
doing it
service. Yeah, I
yourself.
mean, I would say roughly like, retail would be $1,000 a year or maybe more, like our cost, not quite that, but yeah, it's a savings.
And in terms of fast charging, because that can be pretty pricey, how does that work in terms of savings? Because like a lot of times with an electric car, if majority of your charging's at level 2 overnight, savings are huge. But fast charging in an electric car on the road, it's almost the equivalent to gas costs sometimes.
So we do charge a recharge fee to our members. So
Hmm.
half day is a $10. We're just doing a flat fee, $10 for a half day, $15 for a full day. Um, and then there is a rev share with the Aqua Superpower, so we are getting some of that back. Um, when we do the rev share, and then at the end of the day we're doing overnight charge, and we did put solar on the marina.
Nice.
So the solar covers 100% of our electricity, so we get a $22.05 electric bill every month for delivery, and we've never not produced enough to we've never exceeded that, so we've never had to pay for a single kilowatt since we put solar on. So we're not really paying for any of the overnight charging. So we're breaking even probably on the fast charging between what we charge members for the recharge fee, and then the overnight stuff doesn't cost us a penny.
God, that's huge, man. You really went all in on this stuff. How long have you had solar installed?
I think we did that our first year, so it's been 5 or 6 years now, and we've produced enough every single month to cover our electric.
Wow, well done. Did you have state incentives to help out with that, or is it just federal?
Yeah, there were some both. Yeah, yeah.
Wow. So your ROI must be amazing in terms of that now.
It's been pretty good. Yeah, yeah.
And so in terms of your marina, how many boats are specifically for your boat club versus slips that you rent out to people?
It's a smaller marina, but on Lake George, it's like a medium-sized marina. So we've got 34 slips, we've got 20 Freedom boats here, and then we rent out 13, and then we've got our towboat too. So Freedom has become a much bigger part of the marina, but our service team, they'll work on a couple few hundred other boats outside of the marina during the course of the year between service and between winterization and all that. So it's small, but we're pretty busy.
Yeah, that's huge, a few hundred boats. Now, one objection I get from a lot of conventional dealerships is that service aspect. In terms of your overhead, your revenue generation, do you see electric boats as being a threat to that? Call it, 10, 20 years from now when that adoption is actually having an impact?
Uh, you know, we're still doing some work. We get some warranty work on some of the propulsion and torpedo stuff. It's not much, but every once in a while, there's a little bit of work. Um, but I don't think it's going to reduce the work that much. I think if electric boats grow to whatever 10%, 15%, 20% of the boats, I still think the boating pie here. We're on a really busy, desirable lake, so like there's just no shortage of work and boats. And if that takes 10% of the boats in the next 5 years and they go from gas to electric, like that's not going to impact service at all because there's just more work than people can handle right now still. Um, and my general manager, service manager, like he's young. When I say young, he's my age, right? So let me pretend I'm young for a minute. Um, but he's got interest in this. He understands that he wants to learn it, and if we can be the experts in this, like we're going to find a way to make make it work for the business. So uh, I think there was some initial resistance on the service side of that, but they're also realizing even the gas motors now, like there's just so much technology going into boats that the skills that like technicians and service people need are just going that way anyway. Like all the onboard systems and all the autonomy that's coming and everything that's going into boats, like they're going to need that skill set. And being able to work on electric boats is just going to be part of that skill set that they're going to need to work on boats because technology is coming into every part of boats now.
That's it. It's not a mechanic anymore. It's a technician.
Yeah.
I try to reinforce that. I'll occasionally go to different VOTEC programs and like small engine programs and stuff. And, there's always the kids that are these, big V8 guys and Chevy and Ford guys and everything. And like, I always tell them, it's like, why not be the most desirable and the most qualified you can be and embrace this stuff? Get the credentials, get the certifications, and just be knowledgeable on everything, as opposed to pigeonholing yourself into like, oh, this is the guy that can't work on electric stuff. And I mean, I saw some of that shift when I was at BMW, and there were some guys that hated coding and dealing with programming of cars, and like, don't get me wrong, it sucked in the beginning. BMW had no clue what they were doing. It was nightmarish. But like, if you wrote your stories right and did everything they told you, like, you're getting paid straight time for it. They realize their system sucks, and like that's the way it is. But just embracing the change, I think, is so hard for some people, whether they've got some weird bias about it or not. But in terms of like the rest of your employees, I'm curious if there's like I don't know, any kind of hatred or any kind of resistance, or are they all like pretty forward thinking? Like, what does that mix look like?
I don't think there's any hatred. I mean, I think there was definitely some skepticism initially. I think that's all been overcome, but like like everyone, consumers and workers, like there's some guys that work here that have a much bigger preference for heavy horsepower gas motors, and that's never going to change. But that doesn't mean they're not going to understand that like what's good for the business is good for them too. So we've got a really good team. Everyone is open and communicative, and I don't think there's anyone that's going to be like, oh, we're not working on electric. Screw this. It's a good crew, and we're lucky that they're all team players. So even if it's not something they would want to necessarily have at their dock, it's still something they're going to want to learn how to work on and be a part of.
That's impressive. That mindset is, I think, what's hard to find a lot of the time. There's always like resistance and blind hatred for no reason. And like, all I ask of people, I just need you to acknowledge that it doesn't suck and it has a use case, like where it makes sense. Like lakes, for instance. It's not a 100-mile lake. It's not Lake of the Ozarks. people aren't going deep sea fishing. Like, this is a great use case for it. You add
Yep.
in fast charging in a boat club model, and you could argue it's the best use case for it. Your downtime, your overhead, that can be quite a bit.
So, Matt, we talked previously on the last episode about B2G and microgrids and all that kind of stuff. Is that it sounds like you already have a lot of that infrastructure set up that you could utilize. Is that something that you've considered?
Yes, but not in any like great detail at this point. Yeah, short answer, but it's in the future, hopefully, but it's not like a written part of any plan right now.
I'm curious if, oh, yeah, actually got a question. Any range difference between hot summer days and cooler fall weather? Like, how much of an impact is temperature having?
Oh man, I drive a Tesla, and in the last couple days, my 30-mile commute to work has taken 40 miles off my range instead of the 30. Now that we're in the 34 degrees in the morning, um, we go from mid-May to mid-October, and so it never really gets too like we're still like in the 70s, high 60s typically by the time we're done. Um, so we're not really operating it in much colder temperature to see that big a difference. So I don't have a great answer for that just because of when our season ends. Um, I would suspect that the range would go down a little bit in those early October days, but by that point, no one's really going that far on any boat because if it's cold enough to affect the range, it's cold enough for them to not be going far enough where the range matters, I guess I would say.
Yeah. How hot does it get there in the summer? Like, what are your extremes?
I mean, it could get close to 100. We're never really hitting 100s, but in mid July, late July, we could be in the high 90s for a week or so. Typically low 90s is where we'll settle on, the hottest part of the summer.
And no, like, impacts on range then? There wasn't any complaints or nobody noticed anything?
Yeah, nothing noticeable. Yeah.
That's impressive, especially because on that flux system without an active, thermal management for the batteries, it's not like they've got a cooling system. So that's impressive to note.
I mean, I'm looking like our longest trips of the year, August 28th, July 23rd, July 29th. So, I mean, those are probably some of the hottest days of the year. July 23rd, July 29th, July 2nd, and those were three of our five longest trips. So, um, I don't think there were any range issues there.
Oh, that's huge, man. Have you gotten much, I don't know, inquiries or conversations from other freedom boat clubs and just like, hey, how the heck's it going? Because they're interested, or I'm
Yeah, yeah. I
curious.
mean, I talk with a lot of people all the time, and that's where I'm getting those two biggest drawbacks are just that midday charge and that unproven resale are still kind of the two bugaboos for people.
And do you think at that point it's just like non-starter? They finish investigating and like they chalk it up as a not pursuing right now, or does like that conversation turn into
It's no,
chatting with
it's
Aqua
ongoing.
Superpower?
I think it's
Okay.
still a kind of an ongoing thing, and I'm probably the guinea pig for people to see, how things go. So I'm okay with that.
I love it, man. That's awesome. Hats off to you for taking the plunge, like in terms of the early adopter status. And like, it's not always fun and painful, especially you were talking like having the prototype boat. But it takes guys like you to pursue this stuff for other people to follow. I mean, just like the solar on there, it blows me away how few marinas have solar. It's like you're guaranteed, you've got a guaranteed energy consumption, and whether you're covering your slips or your buildings with it, like there's a good chance you've got a high square foot of surface area, and like you're up in New York, it's like there's a lot of people much further south than you where the ROI gets better and better. So hats off for pursuing it, man.
As you can tell with my sweatshirt and jacket, it's cold up here these days, so I got a little bit of a cough. Sorry about that. But yeah, so that's our story, guys. It was awesome talking with you, and I love what you're doing, and I love seeing your building, and can't wait to see your progress.
Yeah, man. Following in your footsteps. There's not we can't get a fast charger yet until we get a master plan together. And so there's like phases to this, but like the end goal is to have I don't know if we'll have 100% of our consumption covered, especially once we have enough fast chargers there. But yeah, just kind of paving the way on what a sustainable, business and marina can look like, because most people aren't educated or aware enough, or they don't even know to look for this stuff sometimes. I was just at a boat club conference in the spring, and most of these people had never known electric boats exist that are like actually planing hulls. everyone knows about the slow e-propulsion torpedo stuff, but in terms of higher horsepower stuff, like even people in the industry are pretty oblivious to this stuff. So we got to keep spreading the message and getting the word out there about this.
Yeah, yeah. We'll keep up the good work.
Awesome. You too, man. Well, appreciate your time. Glad we got a hold of you. And this is awesome to see after a full summer of this thing. Zero breakdowns, zero maintenance. Like it's everything that we hope for. But it's rare to see it with, hey, 130 trips under the belt. It's been perfect. Like so it's thanks so much, man, for sharing the info. This has been great.
All right. Next time, warn me that it's going to be live, so I'm not so nervous about being live. Hopefully this didn't come off too bad.
No, this is perfect, man. We just like organic conversation. I don't want it scripted and doctored. And that's why, like, when we're live and I'm asking you these questions, like, we're getting transparency here. It's not like I want you to filter stuff and not like, because we like setting expectations appropriately. I like setting that bar real low so it's easy to impress people.
Good.
Awesome. Well, thanks, man.
All right, you got it. Take care.
All right, Matt, is before we go, do you have any sites or social accounts you like to share with our audience?
Yeah. If anyone's in the upstate New York area and towing their boat and out on the lake and needs a charge, check us out. We're at queenboatco.com. So pretty easy, just queenboatco.com. And that's got all of our information and links to what we're doing in our Freedom Boat Club. So check it out.
All righty. Well, you've been listening to Electrified Marina podcast brought to you by Electrified Marina at electrifiedmarina.com. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please share with your friends and family. Please leave comments, questions, feedback, potential guests in the comment section on YouTube, and that'll help us to reach more people and spread our message. Special thanks to Bruno the Green Boater and Shift 2 Electric for showing up and participating in our live show. Thanks for watching and listening. Have a great day.